Hey everybody, this is Ryan Mallory, and we're going to talk about the Tesla stock here. Should we be buying it right now? It's almost at $1,400. It's toyed with it. It's gone above it. It's gone below it. Is it going to 2,000? Is it coming back down to 800? I did a video on Tesla about 2 months ago. I think it's appropriate to do a follow-up on it. Now, if you go back to the last video, I was like, hey, look, this thing's trading in the 700s. It was during the same week that we had a whole bunch of crazy Elon Musk tweets about his baby's name, about how the stock's too high in the 700s, just a lot of crazy things that we were talking about. But now that seems to be long gone. The stock's just taking off, knows no bounds at this point. It's consolidated for the last 2 days, but that's only 2 days. A lot of people are talking about 2,000, and some people are talking about 3,000 already. But 2 months ago, I said, hey, you got this declining resistance here. If this declining resistance breaks, you may see a stock go over 1,000, maybe even beyond. Take a look. What do we have here? Well, we have the stock going right back into resistance here at 781. What it needs here is a solid break over 805. If it does that, there's a good chance that we could see price push back into the 1,000s again, maybe even beyond. So that turned out to be quite a prophetic prediction there. It turned out to be an incredible play. Far more than I ever expected from it. But right now, it's at $1,400. Should you be buying here? Should you be selling? You got the Robinhood bros. They're not getting rid of their stocks right now. They're still piling in just below 1,300. So they're willing to take the risk. But as a prudent trader, as a person who's trying to manage the risk, is this the time that you want to be buying into Tesla stock, or should you wait for the pullback? Now here's the thing. Way back, Elon Musk said, I think the Tesla stock's too high in my opinion. And then the thing dropped immediately thereafter, and then it's been off to the races ever since. Was this guy playing 3D chess? Should every CEO come out and say, hey, I think my stock's a little bit too high, and maybe they'll get it to go up too, huh? Maybe he's playing 3D chess and we're just here to witness it. You also have the fact that it's now the most valuable automaker. It just passed Toyota. Toyota has $220+ billion of revenue. Tesla has about $24 billion of revenue. Yet Tesla is worth far more now than Toyota is. Should we be a little bit concerned by that? I think you should, okay? I think maybe it's getting a little bit ahead of itself, but maybe I'm wrong too. And you want to know what I've said in every video? I'm wrong all the time, and that's okay. But the question is how do we manage risk? If we're going to get into the trade, how are we going to appropriately manage the risk? So let's just take a step back and look at the chart for what it is right now. If you're to get in at $1394.28, is that a good price to be getting in at? Well, maybe 5-10 years down the road, it's at $4,000, $5,000 a share, and we can look back and say, man, that was an incredible play. However, if you're looking at it from, okay, a month, 2 months, 3 months down the road, is there going to be a better opportunity to get in on this stock than at $13.94? And I would say yes. And I'll tell you why. Is because we have a lot of things going on in this world right now. It doesn't mean that the stock market's going to come straight back down, but there's a good potential for it to do that. So you're looking at the odds. You've got a pandemic, you've got social unrest, you've got high unemployment, you have got shrinking GDP. You also have states that are shutting down. So you have the potential for there to be more downside in this market. And like I've always talked about, if there's downside in the market, it's going to pull down the majority of stocks with it. In fact, probably like 95% of stocks will come down with the market when it does. Does that mean that Tesla could buck the trend and keep going higher? Yes, but it's unlikely. So again, we're trying to play the odds here. I know there's a lot of people that like the Tesla stock. I like Tesla. I own a Tesla. I love Tesla, okay? I got even a hat. But when it comes to technical analysis, when it comes to trading, I have to put aside those emotions and say, okay, where should I buy the stock? And by the way, it's the most phenomenal thing I've ever driven. It's amazing. I love the thing. I want to buy 2 of them. It wouldn't be smart, but I'd like to. Give me that Cybertruck already. But check it out, just over the last 6 days. Over the last 6 days, this stock has gone straight parabolic. Yes, it's consolidated the last 2 days, but it's still above the 5-day moving average. It hasn't really given up anything in price. It's trading right at its all-time highs. Is there the potential for it to pull back? Yes, I'd say there's a potential for it to pull back maybe as much as $1,000 a share, just in the short term, especially if the market goes south for a little bit. Let's be honest. If there was people shorting the stock at 800, there's not a lot of people left shorting the stock at 1,400, okay? So you've squeezed a lot of people out of this trade, so you can't just depend on the short squeeze to keep sending it higher. Yes, there's probably some new shorts, there's probably some existing shorts that are still holding out, but that doesn't mean that there's a huge chunk of shorts out there right now. But you have short-term support just above this 1030 level. If it pulls back to the 1030 level, I would look for a short-term bounce at least to come back up to $1,200, maybe $1,300 or $1,400 and test the previous all-time highs. That's one option you have here. But we also have to look at it from a risk-reward standpoint. So when you look at it from a risk-reward standpoint, where would you put the stop loss right now? Where would a stop loss make sense? And there's not a lot of places that a stop loss makes sense. So as a result, you can't buy it up here because you could put the stop loss below Monday's lows, okay? But guess what? It wouldn't take much for it to take out the Monday lows. You get knocked out and it goes right back up again. So let's not try to play that. But then you could say, okay, maybe it fills the gap from last Thursday on July 2nd. If it goes down there and it breaks through that, then I want to get out. Then you're starting to talk about a stop loss of more than 10%. So I don't think this is a good time to get into it. If you're long on it, I would probably stay long. You have a lot of support at the 20-day moving average. Check this out. It continues to hold the 20-day moving average for a very long time, going back about 3 months now. If it breaks that 20-day moving average, that might be your sell point. But you have a 20-day moving average on a steep incline, so that continues each day that you don't get stopped out. That 20-day moving average continues to improve. So that could be your stop loss going forward if you're in the stock right now. But if you're not in the stock, don't go chasing it at 1,400. Wait for that pullback. But let's say that the stock never pulls back. Let's say it goes from $1,400 to $2,000 to $3,000. It never pulls back. Well, then you just don't make that trade. It never had a good risk-reward setup in that case. At some point, if it does go up to 3,000, there'll probably be another risk-reward setup that we can talk about at a later date. But right now, we don't know what that's going to look like, so we can't really talk about that. And if it does go up to $2,000, $3,000, well, then you just move on to the next trade, because there's going to always be another trade setup out there. There's always going to be another Tesla, maybe not in the auto manufacturers, but it could be in the banking, it could be in semiconductors, it could be in software, it could be in industry. But in the end, you have to always go off of risk and reward. And I know a lot of people don't like that because they're saying, man, I'm missing out on this thing. That doesn't mean you get into it. If you're missing out, you don't get into it. I got into AMD, I got out of it and went straight back up, okay? I thought I was trying to manage the risk. I thought the market was gonna turn south. It went straight back up. I missed out on that. Does that mean I just jump right back into it and say, oh, I gotta get back into it because I lost out? No, I just didn't make that particular trade. There's always gonna be another trade out there, I promise you. But you have to look at what Tesla is right now. I know there's a lot of speculation on future growth, what this thing can mean to the car industry. And again, I love the car. I think it has huge potential. I got that full self-driving feature. It's amazing. I can sit on the highway and almost do nothing. I don't do nothing, but I could almost do nothing. But the valuation of the stock might be a little bit ahead of itself right now. It's worth 2 times more than McDonald's. It's worth 2.5 times more than Boeing. It's worth a little bit more than Verizon. Its stock price is about 60% more than Nike. In terms of market cap, it's up there with Walmart, 25% more than Coca-Cola. Yes, these are not the same industries. These are not the same sectors even. However, it just shows you that maybe Tesla's a little bit ahead of itself, because if you look at the revenues, if you look at the profits, it's nowhere near these other guys, okay? People are really speculating on future growth here. But if they're wrong, or if there's the slightest adjustment to that expectation, it's coming back down fast. That's why I'm saying at 1,400, if you're in it, keep riding it as long as you can. But I wouldn't go initiating new trades in it at this point. I'd let it come back down some before I would try to get into it. I would try to get a good entry price. Your focus, if you're not in it right now, is to get a good entry price into the stock. That's your main objective. Let's do a little bit more technical analysis. Let's talk about these pullback scenarios here. Again, it may not ever pull back to these levels here, but I'm trying to give you some ideal entry prices in case we do get another second wave down in the stock market. Then this would give you a great opportunity to get into Tesla where you might have missed out before. First of all, you have an incredible trend line off of the March lows. It's touched it and it's bounced every time. That's a good sign, okay? So if you can get a pullback to this rising trend line, and it's a pretty solid trend line so far, and I think there's a good chance that it could see it. Maybe not now, maybe not even in next week or in the month ahead. But if it doesn't, say 3 or 4 months from now, that's a good trend line to get into. So if it pulls back to this 1050 area, or maybe in the future it's at around 1100, follow this trend line. If it pulls back, that's where you want to get it. I think at some point in the future, it will touch this trend line again. I don't think this is an obsolete trend line going forward. Now, one of the best cases is if it could pull back down to this $800 level, and then I would probably get into that, because then you're retesting your previous breakout level, and it's not far-fetched. Guys, look, this thing was trading at almost $1,000 back in late February, and it pulled back down to $350. So you can't say that it's impossible for this thing to pull back to $800 from where it's currently at. It's very possible. So if it does, that's where I would reload next time. Now, you had this long-term trend line that it pulled back all the way to the 350 level, and then it bounced dramatically off of it back in March. Are we likely to see that? Probably not. That's a pretty steep decline at this point. I don't see that happening, not with the number of deliveries that they're making on their vehicles right now. I don't see that happening unless we break through those March lows and we just keep sinking further and further. I think the S&P 500 would have to get to like 15 or 1600 in order for Tesla to see the 300s again. Okay, so let's talk about the stop losses. Let's say it pulls back to 1050. Let's say it pulls back to 1100 on this rising trend line off of the March lows. Where do you put the stop loss? I would put it at the previous higher lows. That's where I would put it at, because if it breaks that level, then you know that there's a change in the trend in the stock. That wouldn't be good. You don't want to hold on to it any longer. So put your stop loss there. Let's say we get a miracle and it pulls back to 800. Where do you put your stop loss then? Again, previous support levels. I would probably put my stop loss around 673 at a key break of support. And those are really the two main scenarios here. I don't see a lot of other scenarios for why you should get into the stock. The main scenario would be a retest of the rising trend line. I think that's very possible here. I love the stock, I love the company, but I do think in the last couple weeks it's gone kind of ahead of itself. So let's pull it back. You have earnings coming up. If the earnings disappoints, or let's just say there's a lot of profit taking that happens at earnings. The earnings doesn't have to be bad for there to be profit taking. And if you get that moment, and let's say in the days and weeks ahead it continues to pull back, it retests that $1,050, $1,100 level, which I think is very possible. That's where I'd probably get in at. Play the bounce, put your stop loss below the previous higher low. And there you have it. That's how you trade Tesla. If you like this video, I humbly ask that you like and subscribe to it. I'm putting out great content every week for you guys. And this is a great way for you to be notified when I put a new video out there. I'm trying to do 1 to 2 a week. One day I'll probably get up to about 3, but I got to get better at this video editing stuff, so bear with me. And tell me below, where do you think Tesla's going? I want you to answer a couple questions for me. How high do you think it's going to go? And if you were to get in at, where would it be if you're not in it? And where would you put your stop loss at? I want to hear about it because I want to learn from you as well. Take care. God bless.